Sonic Boom episode 33. Mech Suits Me. We start out with the heroes frantically running away with exciting music playing. Why does this have to be so rare in the show? All of this. And all the heroes are holding these weird looking weapons with things at both sides. Which makes me wonder why, and how they get them. Tails suddenly gets dragged into the bushes, and so is Amy. Then Styx runs along a grind rail thing, and Sonic taunts her that escape can't be that easy. So they're just playing a dumb game. Knuckles and Sonic fight, and Knuckles gets knocked into the tree below. Then Styx, much to my disappointment, immediately fails without putting up a fight, and gets flung off the slide. Sonic then brags because he won the game, and Styx tells them to check something out. Amy then says it's the oldest trick in the book, just to talk as if she's really talking about a book. That was not a good joke, that was confusing. Why was their time wasted with Eggman? Anyways, the heroes go to a dark cave that has glowing pink ink markings. Amy says it's gotta be from the ancients, and Tails has one mere reference to her archaeology knowledge from the Boom games. But she just knows this because of a convenient arrow instead. Amy finds an old mech suit. Why can't they just call them mechas? I guess because they're not that tall. Sonic goes into the mecha. Sonic of all people. When he's the last person who would need the help, and has no reason to think he'd need it. He has super speed. I prefer if someone else did it. Tails tries to say he wants to run tests on it first, but Sonic walks out of the cave without listening to him. Eggman puts a force field in front of the cave entrance, but Sonic instantly breaks it with the mecha. Right after Eggman gave us some tension by saying that they might run out of oxygen, though it would have made a very boring episode if they were just stuck in the cave with nothing to do. Sonic runs around the giant robot and defeats it with melee attacks before exploding it with a rocket. Then Sonic suddenly grabs Eggman himself and smacks him against a rock and threatens him. Out of nowhere, Sonic has red eyes. And the show actually gets aware of the fact that Sonic is supposedly going overboard because Amy tells him to stop. But Sonic has every reason to try to finish him off. Sonic then asks later why he's still wearing that mecha, and he says it's better than anything Tails could invent. Well, maybe that's true. I assume the reason the mecha hypnotizes its user to be evil is because they'll make a better soldier that way. Sonic cuts in line and then flirts with Percy after we see that she has a twin sister. If he's still into her, then seriously, why isn't he dating her? Amy then plans to excavate an artifact, and there's predictable humor as she acts condescending to them, saying they might not find anything. So of course, Styx and Tails find something instead. So they find out Sonic's being taken over by some sort of symbiotic thing. But wasn't that already assumed? Sonic calls them out on trying to take away his suit, and flies away to Eggman. Out of nowhere, Sonic proposes a partnership to Eggman. But he was trying to kill him last time. The only reason he was made to do this was because realistically he'd end up killing Eggman otherwise. The episode was unusually great before this point. I'm fascinated to see Sonic threaten that awful mayor. He blasts Eggman away and tells him he has 24 hours or else he'll destroy everything. Eggman tells Sonic that the way he stood up to the mayor was epic. I forget, what did Eggman want from the mayor? Logically, he'd want power over the town and nothing but this is a mundane show. Fiendbot reveals that Sonic was standing there off-screen, conveniently listening to Eggman's plan, so we could conveniently find out that Eggman wanted to steal his mech suit for himself, when I didn't think he was anywhere near him. This is a horribly rushed plot twist. He barely got to work with Eggman at all. Most of the working with Eggman was just in a pointless montage that's just in Eggman's head. Although it does actually make sense because Eggman was afraid of Sonic, so naturally he'd feel more comfortable having that mecha himself, and Sonic might betray him. Sonic chases Eggman back to the mayor's office and says to the mayor that he wants something handed over, and that he wishes he would have repealed the chili dog tax. But doesn't everything get taxed? Why would chili dogs be any different? I still wish we were told in more detail how Sonic's been brainwashed, just because he's in a mecha. All of the heroes are humiliated by his mecha while he just stands there because it has a force field. This is a boring action scene. Styx says she'll be in her doomsday bunker, but she arbitrarily stands still afterwards to listen to Tails and Amy's plan, which they came up with too fast for me to type out. Amy spins around while holding her hammer and sends Tails into Sonic's mecha suit so he can pull a convenient lever and Deus Ex Machina save the day. It's so bullshit that there was no window to prevent someone from just falling into the mecha. Amy's confused that Sonic doesn't remember anything, but then he quickly reveals that he remembers Percy and her twin sister just fine. I don't know if she had a twin in the game. I instinctively feel like the only reason she had a twin was because the show was making fun of itself and how it lazily reuses the same few civilian models instead of making more of them. Because, seriously, there's no way that a twin would wear the exact same outfit as their twin. They would want to distinguish themselves. For the most part, this was a pretty great episode through and through. The beginning was almost too tense, with Tails getting pulled into the bushes screaming after the heroes all run away from something in the woods. This could have easily been really dark. But the minute I saw Sonic threaten Styx on that slide, I immediately assumed they were just playing a game with each other from past experience with the show where it's insistent on having the so-called subversion that's just being comedic instead of exciting. Even though it's not subversive for the show to be a comedy when it's just continuing the bad trend of Sonic Colors and Shatter Crystal. This was a good beginning though, because it started with an engaging mystery, and eventually made you wonder if Sonic had been turned against his friends by some sort of brainwashing. And then that literally happens, so it's like foreshadowing. Unfortunately, as usual, the plot has some problems, but at least its plot holes aren't mostly the result of forced comedy like usual. Instead, it seems like the first episode would feel like an actual Sonic story for a change, instead of trying to be a parody all the time. First off, I don't know why Sonic of all people went into the mecha suit to try it out. Sonic doesn't need that kind of suit when he's always effortlessly defeating the robots in one hit. And the same goes for everyone else actually. But we're supposed to believe it makes sense because Sonic's impulsive, reckless, and surprisingly power-hungry, as we saw in the episode where he demanded Tails to keep making him faster. Styx is afraid of the mecha from the start, mistaking it for a robot, so while she needs his power the most, she's too paranoid to try it. And Knuckles is too stupid to be trusted with it, and is too strong to need it. So that leaves Tails. The only reason it makes sense that Tails didn't use this suit, despite it being technology, is that he's cautious. So he inexplicably wanted to run some tests on it first, even though the mecha that Charlie found worked perfectly fine. I wish he got the chance to say it was because it was ancient, and so he thought some parts of it would be broken down. Seriously, how is the suit not discovered already? How long ago did the so-called ancients live? Probably millennia, so it's very hard to believe that there would still be any mecha suits like this out in the open. Why didn't anyone stumble into it before this point? It would have made sense if Amy had to dig this up. If we're supposed to believe Amy knows about archaeology, in a failed attempt to make her an intellectual when that's just one minor thing, why aren't we told that she has a job as an archaeologist while they're at it? She can't have one, because she'd never have the time for that when she's always either fighting Eggman, hanging out with her friends who she doesn't even like, or doing hobbies of hers. Anyways, the plot would have made more sense if we were shown that the heroes were forced into using the mecha to survive. Like Sonic could have been trapped in the cave by Eggman's force field before he used the mecha, so he needed to break through the cave wall to escape. But no, instead he somehow breaks the force field of all things, which is quite a convenient power of his. I can at least understand why a mecha suit would brainwash its user to be evil, because being evil would make a soldier more likely to enjoy being a soldier and do a good job. Doesn't exactly paint a nice picture of what the ancients were like though, and I refuse to believe that said brainwashing would be possible through mere technology. Would have killed the writers to just have it be a brainwashing crystal that did it? Where's the chaos crystals in this show? That could be one of them. It's also forced that the brainwashing spell arbitrarily turned Sonic's eyes red. How? I knew what was going on the second he grabbed Eggman himself and threatened him, because he never did that before. And the premise of the show hinges on the fact that the heroes are too stupid to just grab and kill Eggman himself instead of letting him get away. So Amy arbitrarily stopped Sonic, and Sonic magically listens to her, even though he was being brainwashed and had no reason to listen to her. It was interesting to see Sonic being corrupt for a change, and it certainly lost a lot less Gary Stewish than Sonic Unleashed, where I'm expected to believe Sonic didn't become evil from the dark guy influence just because he's the bestest person ever. Oh, so Sonic didn't change at all. He turned into a werehog! Him being a werehog would have made this plot point make more sense, because he'd look much more evil, and we'd have him corrupted by magical power, dark Gaia energy, instead of technology that he has no reason to try to use at this point. Another thing that was especially forced about the plot was that despite trying to kill Eggman for trying to suffocate him and his friends, He arbitrarily tries to team up with Eggman and take over the town. Why? What does that have to do with being a better soldier? So why would the mecha suit be programmed to make its users do that? That's some glitch. That's a soldier uprising waiting to happen. At that point, none of the soldiers would have stayed loyal to their bosses. It was such obvious meta logic. The only reason he did this was because the writer was writing Sonic as evil in general, as opposed to being given a personality shift for the specific purpose of being a better soldier. And of course, if he did the logical thing, it'd be too dark, especially for the most sympathetic Eggman in the series. I felt sorry for him when Sonic threatened him. It goes to show you how he's too much of a pathetic underdog. In the end, Tails won over Sonic because of a Deus Ex Machina. Someone being able to just go into the seat of the mecha from the outside is such an obvious design flaw. I was shocked to see that it was that easy. Why wouldn't there be some bulletproof glass between Sonic and the outside of the mecha? Why wouldn't there be a window you could slide down? If anyone could get in there from higher up and instantly use the shutdown lever that shouldn't exist, well, I guess that was an intentional design thing, just in case a soldier in the mecha went rogue. But that's such an obvious thing that the enemy team would take advantage of. No wonder they found this mecha suit all alone instead of with a collection. It was probably just an experiment that they ditched for good reasons. I did like that Amy swung Tails around with her hammer to give him enough speed to get flung into the mecha. It was nice to see them have a team ability and see Amy do something new. I just can't help but feel like the episode was a little too dark without trying to lighten things up. Sonic was genuinely intimidating. The problem is that I never expected an evil Sonic to have a serious personality. I'd expect him to be like Scourge. And he was only like Scourge in the sense that he admired the twins. And I loved that Casanova moment of his, but still, what's the point if it's not Sonic being himself, but eviler? Which it seemed to be going with at first, because why would the mecha suit be specifically programmed to make the user bet a Casanova who likes seeing twins? That's a disaster waiting to happen. But him being made serious and prone to anger and mistakes fits with him being made a better soldier first and foremost. So what are the rules? Better soldier, or just be made more selfish? If it was just about making him have no anger control, then why did he merely cut in line instead of smacking everyone out of line? He's trying to be serious and intimidating instead of entertaining and informal, like Scourge and Sonic. But at that point, you could have had Shadow in the mecha suit and he would have done the exact same things. Minus the admiring twins part, which clashes compared to everything else. And he would have smacked people away instead of simply cutting in line. So it's not an exact comparison. The point is, he was as serious as Shadow. Wouldn't it have looked cooler if he had darker fur as well as red eyes? He could be Dark Sonic. That helped drive the point home that he's being made this way by corrupting negative chaos energy. Because mere technology wouldn't be able to make his eyes turn red. Just only do it temporarily and stop there. I saw the red eyes in Sonic and I wondered if this was the so-called Sonic EXE reference I vaguely remember hearing about for the show. Sorry, it's not good enough. He doesn't have black corneas, just red eyes. And instead of his entire goal being to murder everybody, he did a bunch of other things, and just stood there doing nothing while his friends failed to do any damage to his mecha. He just let them try to attack it instead of trying to attack at every opportunity. I don't think this was an intentional reference. I don't even remember him getting any hits in that weren't aimed at Knuckles. I think Amy got hit too. Who cares? None of them got injured and put in the hospital, so there was no real stakes. Which all combined to make him surprisingly dissonantly incompetent and weak for how intimidating he was. At least Super Scourge got a hit in on everybody while having a bunch of dialogue, even if he was holding back because he could have done way worse. Episode 33-2, Fiendbot. We start out with Sonic bringing a game home, and his friends make relatable conversation about it. I hope it doesn't look as horribly graphically bad as the one in the Meteor. So after Sonic plays a video game, being relatable for once, Eggman plans to program a robot with everything he knows about Sonic so he'd know what to do against him. Which somehow wasn't the case with Metal Sonic. Why is this a new idea instead of standard procedure? And it's forced that Eggman says Sonic has rugged good looks. Amy briefly rants about the stereotype of girls being bad at video games just to be bad at them herself. I can tell this writer is a man. This is what's so embarrassing about Amy being like this. The game involves two weird-looking characters sending projectiles out underwater. It's so indescript. It's so minimalistic, so vague, with so little emphasis put on it, That maybe that's why I can't get invested and take it seriously. What is it, an Atari game? Who would have an Atari console, not a normal console? What was the point of this then? The show's so scared or low budget that it won't pay for the copyright permission to showcase an actual game. Not even a Sega game. Unless this is some real indie game I don't know about, but that's not the point. They could have shown off Sonic playing Ristar. This isn't something people care about like Smash Brothers that we can relate to, where it's immediately obvious who's winning and what's going on. Knuckles does some boasting about winning against Sonic, for once, taking way too long with it in an overly long gag. Actually, that makes him a hypocrite because he complained about Eggman and Sonic's body showboating in the Meteor, and now he's showboating because he won a video game. That's nice, actually. When people call this show mundane, this must be what they're talking about. Where the show gets genuinely boring because of its focus on bad comedy. We see a pointless montage of Sonic's escapades from the perspective of the Fiendbot, although the view isn't that great, being surrounded by this green square or whatever. Why would Eggman program his robots to have such impeded vision? At one point I see Sonic fighting Shadow, and I hadn't seen that episode yet. And when I was watching this episode for the first time, I hadn't seen the Shadow episode yet, so I was confused. Sonic gets attacked by the Fiendbot just for it to waste time talking to him at length, 2 separate times. And somehow Sonic fails to just attack it in all that time. He just uses a spin attack and runs away from the robot, that's it. This was done much better in Fleetway because Predicto attacked all of Sonic's friends. So there was more variety in what was happening, as opposed to just Sonic running. He stopped Tails with the mushroom. This so-called action scene is over before you know it and barely makes an impact. When Sonic saves a purple girl after running away from his attacks, she thanks him. Is this what Predicto would have been like in a TV show? Taking an overly long time talking instead of always attacking? It worked in a comic because it was a short series of still images, so better disguise that. Out of nowhere, Fiendbot decides to side with Sonic in the most out of nowhere and lazy plot twist ever. Eggman's not nearly as mad as he should be at him, and Sonic doesn't react nearly as strongly as he should to it. He just tells him that he can't follow him home. This is like if the robot called Art in Sonic Underground was done in a horribly lazy and half-assed way. In Underground, we had multiple action scenes with it where it seemed unbeatable, and it did something interesting because it had these long tentacles. And then it had a genuine reason to side with Sonic, his music. What an underwhelming, boring slog of an episode. And then his friends panic at seeing the robot show up at their house. And somehow this happened because Sonic didn't just tell them about his experience with the robot with his communicator. And since Knuckles says he could destroy Sonic anytime, Fiendbot briefly threatens to kill Knuckles, but it leads to nothing with Sonic easily convincing him to behave. This feels like an episode with no effort put into it at all, where they thought it was brilliant just because a robot was siding with Sonic, when that's been done just because a robot was siding with Sonic. If every episode was this dull and lazy, I'd really wonder why the show got more episodes than Sad AM. We see Eggman, with Soot on him, reveal that his new robot was programmed with all of the Sonic knowledge as Fiendbot, but without the brain power. So he'd be a hopeless idiot. He'd run into walls constantly. We get a bunch of small clips, very vaguely describing how Fiendbot is like being with them, ending with him dancing and hitting away one of the heroes by accident. Just like that, I've forgotten the montage. The heroes fight some Eggman's robots in the generic way they usually do, as I keep thinking about how Sonic Underground handled this idea of a robot joining the heroes' side so much better. When it showed how it spent time with the heroes, we saw it being useful, and they were going on missions against Eggman, not wasting their times. Seriously, why can't Boom Eggman have robot factories? And since the show doesn't have continuity either, I'm guessing that just like that show, they'll find some excuse to get Fiendbot out of the team in the same episode he joined. He doesn't even have a personality, so there's no appeal to him. I wonder if this show would have the guts to actually destroy him, because Underground did that and made a big dramatic deal out of it where one of the characters was sad about it, dedicated some explosions to his memory, which would never happen in this show. This is really an underwhelming and meh episode with barely any effort put into it. The concept of Eggman making a robot by putting information about Sonic into it has been done before, for Pseudosonic and Archie, and Predicto. And it was done better both times because those stories had the proper focus on action. In this show, both from an uninterested writing team and low budget, the action is always a short-lived, forgettable part of the episodes, with no creativity put into making them entertaining most of the time. Where all the characters fight the way you'd always expect them to, 99% of the time. I'm tempted to make a list of all the creative ways Sonic fought robots and Archie just to contrast stuff like this, but that'd be too much work. Because you're not supposed to just fight by spin dashing and running away. That's the bare minimum amount of effort. I guess I could make a list of the creative ways they fought in this show though. If the action is really not focused at all, and it's so uncreative and typical with the heroes never even getting hit most of the time, then that sucks because action is the backbone of Sonic. It's one of the most important fundamental parts of it. It's certainly not comedy because that's never been Sonic's strong suit, and whenever it tries, it's awkward. So when I saw a robot with intelligent battle data every robot should have being sent out for Sonic, my expectations for its level of threateningness were high. But instead, all it does is attack a city, making Sonic run away after spending time talking without being attacked during it. And all Sonic does, from what I can remember, is the most generic things he always does. You can tell when a continuity of Sonic is fantastic when it's usually creative with the action scenes, because that's where creativity is needed the most, because that's what everyone looks forward to, as opposed to boring, dull mundanity, which is what most of the episode was. At least it humanized Sonic to see him playing a video game, but the concept of a threatening robot of Eggman sympathizing with Sonic and joining him has been done much better in Sonic Underground basically every way. And this episode met none of those standards. He just randomly decided to join Sonic for no reason. Eggman and Sonic didn't have nearly as strong emotional reactions to it as you'd expect. And then the heroes generically fight badniks, and they lose their new robot friend at the end of the episode. Because if they didn't lose him, we'd have continuity. Not that I care because this robot had no personality. He said nothing interesting and had no real character arc like Art in Sonic Underground, where he was interested in the heroes' music because Robotnik banned their music. That was more interesting than Fiendbot was. It's a good thing we at least see the heroes doing stuff, in the sense that they're doing activities together for fun, because if all the characters did most of the time was talk, it could all be done in visual novel and the plot would be just as easy to understand. I get that it can't be action most of the time, though Dragon Ball Z probably gets away with it, so why can't Sonic? But it's a budget thing, I guess. It wouldn't be so bad that the action was just a small part of every episode if most of the content leading up to it was really good, to the point of feeling worth it. But instead, it's usually dull. I'm not exactly laughing all the time like I thought it would be.